Okay, this is my BMW, and this happens to be a Z4, but it'll apply to a lot of 3 Series and other BMWs because BMW likes to maintain consistency. And today I'm going to be working on the front brakes. Now, one of the things I was going to show you is it's pretty easy to know when you need to change the brakes. I'm going to put this in. And when you start it, you're going to notice this big red brake light, and then it also says replace the brake pads, and then after that it says brake pads. Tire pressure malfunction is just because I have custom rims on there and I haven't put in the valve stems, but brake pads. Okay, so all that is very straightforward. It needs brakes. Now, which brakes is a little bit more, it doesn't tell you if you need front pads or back pads. But I've already taken off the front and back and actually looked at each one, and the back hat it's thick. It's got tons of meat on it. But the front, of course, is very, very thin. It's what's wearing out. And that's not a big surprise considering front brakes do most of your braking effort if you're looking at your brake bias. So fronts almost always wear out faster than rear brakes. You gotta replace both eventually, but fronts. And that's what we have today. So I'm gonna peel off the tire, the rim. We'll get in there, I'll replace pads, and I expect to replace a brake sensor as well. Okay, so the wheel's off, and we can look at the brake. So you can tell right here that the pad is getting really thin. You know, it still has enough space on it that we're not metal to metal, right? Because we want to change the brakes before that happens. But the pad itself, there's not much left to it. Okay, so just to show the sensor we're hunting, so we have this sensor wire, which is going right into the back of the brake pads. It comes along. We unplugged it from, attached it here, goes behind the strut, unattached it here, and then it goes up inside, underneath the bonnet, under the hood. So we open the hood, and then right here, you can see this wire right here. It is our brake sensor. And if you peek behind here, you can see this little pod, which to me, actually, based on those two things, look like they should be attached up in the car, probably stuck right there. But either way, we're gonna unplug the sensor here and then put in our new sensor wire. Okay, so this is the new brake sensor, and this is the business end. This is what senses when it's finally done. So this is going to clip into the brake pad right here, and this part is going to, contact the rotors. When the wear gets thin, it's going to wear down, and wear in. Okay, now this is the attachment end, and I've got to get it out of the block. So looking at my new one sort of helps me out. Is that it's going to slide in on this little trident, and then to get it off, it looks like I'm going to have to just bend this to the right because it's got a notch on it. So bend it to the right and then pulling it off. So that's what I'm going to do now to get the old one out. Okay, so I have the brake sensor now unclipped from the block, from that little holding block. And then it's also held right here by a small bracket. That's been popped out too. So now I can feed it down through that hole. Right here. Ta-da. And this is the old sensor. Now I'm going to finish taking out the pads and all the rest of the brakes, the brake stuff, and then we'll put in the new sensor. So here's a close-up of the sensor wire. You can see it's just in that, here, this is the brake pad I'm pointing at. It's locked into a notch right in the pad. Here's what that notch looks like, right? That notch right there. And so it just sits and it actually snaps. Feels like a nice Lego, just snaps into that. Okay, well, we're left with this big long wire, and now I'm gonna just show you how to thread it through there. So we're gonna put it through the bleeder, and then you cap over it. Next, we're gonna thread behind the strut, but in front of the sway bar. So we'll slide it onto this fork. Okay, so now that we've threaded it through the back, the next is I'm gonna tuck it up here inside the engine bay. So now that that's in place, I'm gonna put it in right here. There we go. So that's in there. Next, we're gonna go thread it on the inside of the engine bay. Okay, so here's what it looks like with the brakes are done. The new brakes are in. There's the sensor, flows on back through the bleeder valve, goes on up to that first fork that captures it, flows in between the strut and the sway bar to that fork, which captures it, which then flows up through the hole to the engine bay. From the engine bay, comes in to that little holding block there, which then ties in to another bracket, and that bracket binds right here. One other thing to note is that there's only a sensor on one side, so if we go to the passenger side, there isn't any. Same thing on the rear, there's only one sensor. They don't have 4 sensors on the car, there's only 2. So if you feel like one's missing, don't worry about it. As long as you have one on the front and one on the back, you're totally good. Okay, so now we're back inside the Beamer after doing the brake job. And we're gonna turn it on, and I'm gonna see if the brake light comes on still, or if we've solved it by putting in a new sensor. Some things require you to go to the dealer to have the computer reset, or not go to the dealer and just set it with your own computer program. That with this, the sensor will just make it work all by itself. So we'll see. Yay! All better. We got the tire pressure warning, which I expect, right? Just because I have different rims without the TPMS sensors on the car right now, but where we would normally see brake right here is gone. So you don't have to take it to the dealership to have it reset at all. You just need to put in a new sensor and it automatically calibrates. There you go. Well, I hope this helps. Oh, also one last thing. If you're ever doing your own brake jobs, always remember to step on the pedal a lot of times before you go anywhere. And then, of course, slowly stop the first time. Don't just drive out the door and press the pedal, because odds are you're going to have gap between the pad and the rotor the first time you try to stop, and it will be a long stop to have that happen. Anyway, I hope this all helps and the sensor information is useful.